Well, hey there, YouTube. It's Petey Two Finger, and I've got some additional comments on the amp that I just built. So I'm just gonna. This was a comment that I left on the video. I did a demo style video today, and I left this comment, which is really long. I'm just gonna make a video out of this. So I cleaned some stray flux off of the PCB. The PCB is tiny, and it is SMT components. So there was some flux, and the fastener, the Phillips screw that holds the heat sink onto the main power amp chip, the TDA 2030, was very loose. So that was knocking around, and I used a Q-tip with a little alcohol, a little naphtha, removed that excess flux, tightened down the heatsink, and that solved the popping and interference sound. Now, I listened to the demo, and the audio on the demo is awful. Trust me, in the room, this little speaker sounds pretty good, along with the Nux MG300, which is a very good sounding amp modeler / cab sim. Of course, it's not the best amp modeler, but it's best in its class, which is entry level. I paid $100 for mine. So if you're looking to get into amp modeling, I would heartily recommend the Nux MG300, and they've got another one coming out, the MG30, which is a lot more features. But if you just want to get your feet wet, I paid $100 for mine, and it's a 32-bit device, which is it's kind of new. All of the other ones I saw were 24, and gee, I'll tell you, I don't know if it's those extra bits or what, but this thing sounds really good. Now, if you're going to get into amp modeling, or if you're going to do it right, you have to consider your amplifier and speaker options. Playing it through a guitar amp is not best, and how I could explain that is a guitar amp in the traditional sense of the word, where you have this expensive device, your amp, and it has a sound quality to it. No matter what guitar you play through there, it's going to colorize the sound to a certain extent to make it your amp. You're going to know what that amp sounds like, and that's its tonality. And that's a huge part of why people pay so much money for tube amps and expensive guitar amplifiers. It's a real fact of life. This isn't mojo or juju. This is what these devices do. So if you have an amp modeler, which is a computer that records different amps and calls them back, and then you connect that to a guitar amplifier, you're double dipping on the tonality. And that's not always going to line up. It's not always going to flatter itself. It's not always going to sound good. So the places, these companies where these sound laboratories where they're working with this stuff, they're not plugging their amp modelers into their Marshalls or their Fender amps. They have studio monitor speakers. That's what they're using. They're using full range, flat response speakers. And they're starting to make these for guitar. So this is important. You really need an FR type speaker if you're going to be doing amp modeling. Full range, flat response. And on one end of the spectrum, we have a guitar cabinet, a guitar speaker. On the other end of the spectrum, we have an FR cabinet. Well, in between there's all kinds of different options. And when you're talking about a cheap option, something like a quality bookshelf speaker, believe it or not, is going to do a better job than plugging it into a guitar speaker. That's just a fact of life. Now, mind you, the bookshelf speaker is not going to be ideal. It's going to, in my case, it's tiny, it's going to lack bass, and it's not a flat response. This is where I can compensate with the EQ in the Nux MG300. I can turn the bass up a little bit, turn the treble down. Everything will be fine. And it's also not supposed to be paint peeling loud, meaning this application of me playing in my apartment, I'm not going for, this is perfect. This little mini amp and a mini speaker. I can turn it up to a decent functional level and have everything working at a good clip, but it's not going to disturb the neighbors. So again, it may lack bass, it may not be a perfectly flat response, but this little bookshelf, it's not going to be paint peeling loud. I can compensate for the EQ, and it's going to work well for its purpose. And hey, for $3, it fits the bill. I could have went to McDonald's and got an order of fries and a water. I like this little Polk audio speaker. It stood out at the resale store in the sea of shitty speakers at not very good prices. I often see decent but single speaker there. Now I can purchase them and use them to play the guitar through with this mini amp I built. It's often I see a decent but single speaker. And I usually pass those up because it's like, what are you going to do? You need two, and that's why that they're there. People don't buy them. So a huge factor in all this is not bothering the neighbors. They are the only ones allowed to make noise in the building. Hanging out in the common area every day with their children, giggling or screaming, jumping down the stairs is cool, but if I fire up a guitar, police. It is what it is. I make these little amp projects for fun and for cheap. I'm always learning a little bit, usually what not to do or what's a waste. I'm not here to say I've discovered something good or recommend my way of doing things as the best. This particular project was fun. I'm very proud of how it came out, and it will enable me small, convenient in that it doesn't need a wall plug or power supply. So it has the built-in 3X18650 Lion battery pack. So this micro amp, I will be able to audition all sorts of speakers and see what works well and what does not. Tonight I had a center channel, which is a rectangular box with two 4.5-inch real bassy drivers, like heavy magnets, and then a nice honking tweeter. And that was made by Onkyo. And I got that for 99 cents at a Goodwill because it had been dropped and the front was cracked. So I cut all the plastic and tore the fabric off of it, and it's just bare in the front. And surprisingly enough, it had a big magnet on the tweeter. Really looked nice. Lacking in the high end, comparing it to the Polk, the plastic speaker that I showed you in the video. Now the Onkyo did have a lot more rounded out low end. To be honest with you, both of these speakers would complement each other very nice. If I have a stereo amp and run the Polk on one right channel and the Onkyo on the left. So I have a pair of automotive compression horn tweeters. These are super tweeter is what it's called, and they're nice. They're heavy, and they produce a lot of highs. So I'm building those into some small, very nice JVC speaker boxes with crossovers. I've got 50-watt crossovers, two-way. And this way I can try adding this sort of high-frequency driver to whatever cabinet I would like. Typically guitar, 12-inch. And I've done this before. It may not be ideal when you're talking about FR, but I'll tell you what, it sounds a lot better with the tweeter than without when you're running an amp modeler. So this is all about me coddling, whatever the word, together crap that I pick up from Goodwill and learning what works and what doesn't. I'm not here to say how smart and wonderful I am because I figured out I went on eBay and found an amp for $2 and built it into a little box. I really don't want to come off like I think I'm something special for putting this stuff together. And you'll see that in the in the poor quality of the demo video. The demo video was awful. There was some like compression. It was like a lot of hiss on the tape. When I listened to the demo I made tonight with the early uninspired playing, the demo was an embarrassment. So I felt the need to kind of say a little something here. But I want to let you guys go, and thank you so much for your support. Everyone has been so kind to me in the comment section, and that really does mean a lot. I think ultimately there is no really simple solution to get great guitar tone. If you want that, it's a process. And for me, I'm more going after recording and live performance with easily recallable, like I'm not using a pedal board. It's like a multi-effector. You know, I'm going for that Class D power amp, powered speakers, at least decent full range speakers. They might not be flat, and then EQing to compensate. That's been like the path that I've arrived at from messing around with this stuff. But it certainly isn't to say that I'm doing it right or the best or anything like that. I'm trying to figure out how to do this and make it sound as best as I can. And at some points I find, oh, I was successful. This was pretty good. And that's where I arrived today playing this thing. I was surprised at how good it sounded. I made a demo video, and then the demo video sounded like crap. Anyway, you guys, I'm going to let you go. Take care of yourselves. It's a path, you know. It's these motherfuckers who have arrived that I'm worried about. Take care of yourselves, and peace.